Back again. Weekly wrap up time. Here with a beer. Semetary today. And I even brought along a real treat for myself, which is a bourbon cream, but not any bourbon cream. Marks and Spencer's bourbon cream. Now, if you're not from the UK, Marks and Spencer's are a bit fancy. And these are fancy. Like, I don't know if you get the sense of this, but look how thick the extra filling is in it. It's delightful. Anyway, I'm supposed to be reading a lot this week. I set myself a nice lofty goal. And you know what? I didn't make it. But there's good reasons. I did get finished in a couple of books. I've plenty to talk about, sure. But I forgot I was at multiple concerts this week. In fact, multiple concerts were a long drive to it, so I lost at least 2 to 3 days of complete reading where I got nothing done. But I did get to see the Smashing Pumpkins. Immense. I did get to see Weezer. Immense. I even got to see Limp Bizkit. Now, if you'd have told me I was going to go see Limp Bizkit a year ago, I'd have said I don't know. Energy and all the things was off the hook, but Limp Bizkit was particularly special because I got to go with my son, who's 14. His first outdoor concert where he got to bounce about and all the rest of it. And aside from the leg cramps that he got about halfway through it, it was great fun. I might overlay some images and stuff in here, but in general, that's what affected a lot of my reading this week. However, I did finish some of the books that I've set out to do. And one of them was Pet Sematary by Stephen King, the lauded, well, quite lauded, I suppose, most scary book of Stephen King. Now, I don't know if I found that necessarily true. It's definitely creepy. It has a lot of darkness to it. There's no doubt about that. It is kind of morose and unforgiving in ways that some King books don't quite go there to the same extent. So if that's what makes something the scariest thing for people, then so be it. But I found it, the character work sort of interesting compared to some others, because as I said last week, one of the most interesting characters was the guy that lived across the road, Judd, and he maintained being quite interesting, but the main characters themselves were all a bit whatever. And part of that, I know from King's point of view, is that you insert yourself into this kind of blank slate of a character that he gives you, but I have to admit, it's not in the upper tier of King on first read. It's enjoyable. It's definitely creepy, some of the writing and stuff, but some of the stuff I found most creepiest was when things were supposed to be normal, and a cat walks past. That's the stuff that was really creepy. Any of the other stuff that I think is supposed to, fit into the more horror-y kind of sense, I don't think really did for me. That thrill came in other forms, and it wasn't really about the horror that was going into it. So, there's 2 books down from King this year. This and Salem's Lot. Salem's Lot was infinitely better for me, anyway. And I know a lot of people have this very, very high up their list, but it's only kind of mid-tier for me so far. But, one read is not enough, maybe, to really say that. But, yeah, that was that. But what was stellar, and I haven't enough superlatives for this, is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which I finished this week. And this is a magnificent book. A magnificent book in all of the ways that modern sci-fi purports to be. And that is, in a lot of ways, having it being very readable. You're not having it too highbrow. Tick, tick. But what it does is it elevates everything by just having so many themes and so many questions that it wants you to answer and to think about. So how, human evolution, our evolution will mirror the evolution of species on this new planet, basically the spiders that are in there as they grow up and they see, and some of the choices that they make compared to the choices that humanity made, and maybe the reasons why that may be the case. It's so juicy. It is so full of exploration of human history and of all of the missteps and all of the things that we've done well in a lot of ways. And I said it last week, I just find it a deeply political book about choices that people make and the kind of system that we find ourselves in now. And as we often say on the Speculative Speculations podcast, where we talked about this in depth and have just finished our full discussion of it, bit by bit, sci-fi is often a mirror for what is happening in the modern world, and no truer book of that than Children of Time. I can't wait to continue on, because I was fearful at one point when we got through. I was going, well, where is this going? The end isn't going where I thought it was going to go, and yet by the last page it had pulled it all back around and done a 180 on where I thought it was going to go, and all of that kind of stuff. I found it completely delicious and set up the next book perfectly. I just can't wait to keep on digging in, and we'll be starting that this week, as you'll find out. Last thing that I fully read was actually a graphic novel. So we are reading Alan Moore's Cycle of Swamp Thing. This is book 1 that collects like the first 8 issues or something like that of Swamp Thing. And again, I found this a bit of a mixed bag. I really enjoyed a lot of it. You can see the sort of dated style of some of the storytelling, but it essentially tells the story of Swamp Thing, who is a part animal, part human hybrid, and this kind of retelling of the story. This actually is from the Swamp Thing run. It starts about issue 20, I think, but it is by Alan Moore, and early Alan Moore in terms of like some of his great works coming along. And you can see definitely the genesis of his ideas there. There's no doubt about it. I did a discussion for this as well. If the podcast is up, I'll stick a link to it if you want, if you've read this or want to follow along, because we're doing this a trade at a time. So there are 6 trades, and we'll be going through each of the trades with a really great group that I'm reading with Steve and Jared and Mike and Varsha. And we found an awful lot of similar kind of ideas and things that we gravitated to. The interesting parts of it, I feel, are still to come. We don't see an awful lot of Swamp Thing in this, in terms of being like a hero or a villain or a caster or otherwise. He's sort of on the periphery, and we concentrate a lot more on the kind of smaller arcs and smaller characters, bad characters that we have in here, including one called Woodrue, who is like an incredibly interesting version of, a lot of these things are very similarly themed, kind of the choices that you could make and how choices reflect your future and determine what your future is. And like I say, the artwork is I would say somewhat dated, the colouring is somewhat dated, but some of the paneling, and especially the front cover artwork, I especially love this one down the bottom, which is the anatomy lesson. That's the name of the issue, and it's done with this moniker or pastiche to Anatomy of a Murder, the Otto Preminger film. It's just terrific. And then obviously the cover artwork, which you can probably see there, some of it's just, that stuff's absolutely magnificent and off the scale, and some of the framing and paneling is excellent as well. I do like this kind of gothic styling that we get with the eagles or the gargoyles at the corner, kind of setting it up into the arches. Really, like to mix that kind of stuff in the reading. And I know an awful lot of people don't kind of ascribe to reading, graphic novels or the like, but there's definitely something there that helps, keep things fresh for me, and throwing one in every week or so, or a couple of weeks, is definitely something that I really look forward to. Also on my reading slate from last week that I thought I would get through was The Honjin Movers by Seishi Yokomizo, which is a locked room murder mystery. Now I'm kind of halfway through it. It's not a very long book at all, and in fact there's not an awful lot has really happened apart from the murder. They're kind of pulling apart the clues, and some of it's actually quite novel. It's a novel, yay. Some of it's quite interesting in that regard, because they even have the maps of what happened, the scene and what it looked like, etc. Heaven knows if I'd be able to find this, but yeah, there it is. So a plan of what happened with footsteps going away and what the layout of the room was. So when they're trying to explain how things could have happened, and you're trying to work out how the people were murdered inside, and they're all part of like a Japanese house system, which is some of it, there's a class-based aspect to it as well. That stuff's really interesting, but it's sort of told looking backwards. So it's like already been solved, but pointing back as if, oh, can you work it out? It's very much breaking the fourth wall, third wall. It could be the third wall. Don't know what happened to the third wall, but definitely breaking the fourth wall in aspects of, yeah, you're wondering how this could have happened. I'm going to tell you how. But before I do that, let me introduce you to some characters and things that may or may not be important. Some of them obviously red herring, some of them otherwise. I'm not finding it as engrossing as I thought, but what I will say is that often this type of book kind of succeeds or fails by the last 50 pages or the last resolution of it. And that's what I'm really hoping, is that by the time I finish this, which will probably be tonight, tomorrow, something like that, I'll have an appreciation of it being sort of novel and clever, which will be a lot of fun, obviously. On the slate this week, I have a couple of things that I'm doing chats about. So I am continuing on doing my kind of lip-thick conversations with the crowd over Page Turn. Steve put this in the wheel, and Child of God came out by Cormac McCarthy. I don't think the vibes for this within the group are particularly positive, but it's short. We'll make our way through it, and it'll be our third McCarthy read of the year, having done Blood Meridian and The Road, which were, I mean, The Road universally loved. Blood Meridian, challenging for some. I really enjoyed it, but I'm definitely happy to add another McCarthy book to that pile. As I said, going to be starting about the first 150 pages of Children in a Ruin. God, I'm really interested to see how they start it, and go on and continue on the story. And the last one I'm going to be doing a discussion on this week is our continuing run through the SF Masterworks series. This is book 11 in the series, and this is Olaf Stapledon's Last and First Men, which is not First and Last Men, which is what I've been saying for most of the time. And this one is a bit earlier because Stapledon died in 1950, so in a lot of the reads we've done so far, they've kind of been about 10, 15, 20 years later than this. Jared, who I'm reading this with, is sort of detailed this out as a bit more of a history book. Now, I'm not adverse to that at all, but he did say it was a bit slower going, so I need to make my way through that. And one of the things that really strikes me about the whole SF Masterworks series is that each of the books that we've done so far, of the 10, none have been really alike in any way. And because of that, it means when you pick up another one, you're kind of expecting it to again not be like anything else. And I think that is a thing that's going to be very hard to maintain over the course of the series. But I have to say, like, of all of the reading experiments and challenges and prompts that we've done, this is definitely one of the most satisfying, because I think for a lot of us this has been right outside our comfort zone, but we're finding it a great way to build up your vocabulary about science fiction writing, and where it comes from and what it references and all of that kind of stuff. Even within 10 books, it's right on point. I can't wait when we finish our 12th one of the year to talk about a year doing this and what I've learned, and whether I could recommend doing it to anybody else, even whether the books are good or great. We've been doing rankings as I went on, as I say. So that's been those. Time for another glass of beer, or a sip at least, as I make my way through this. What else have I been doing? Well, watching TV. I'm up to date with Dark Matter, as I talked about last week, and I'm finding it very interesting as well. Again, it's more thematically rich than I thought it was going to be. It's often described as the airport thrillery sci-fi thing, but whether it's just the TV series and not just the book, again, this idea that the choices that we make as people influence who we are as people. So if we made a choice then and made a different choice, maybe we become nastier, more loving, whatever. This whole idea of exploring alternative possibilities is very, very interesting, and I have to say I'm really enjoying that series. I sort of didn't expect to like it as much, but it definitely has drawn me in, and there's only 2 episodes to go. I also watched the first episode of Eric, which, it's a strange beast. It's on Netflix. Strange beast in that it's sort of imaginary friend, son goes missing, father's an asshole, Benedict Cumberbatch, and he's a puppeteer. I don't know, I'm not enough into it yet to really have made much of a progress on it. But House of the Dragon's back tonight. I'll watch that tonight, tomorrow sometime, and there's a couple of other things starting very soon that I'm quite excited about. I'm looking forward to getting to. So that's what I'm watching on TV. But aside from that, in the next week, just a bit of work to do, But this will see me nearly through to the summer, and where my reading will hopefully take off again. Oh, it'll be wonderful. I might even finish a couple of those big books in my time off. Let me know what you've been reading, if you've been reading any of these, have any opinions on what I've either got coming up or what I've just finished. Let me know. Other than that, I shall catch you again soon. I'll speak to you then. Thank you very much for sticking around. I'll speak to you soon. Take care. All the best. Bye.